Hi everyone, I'm just going to give you some tips today about tomatoes and care for tomatoes and pruning tomatoes. I know some people had some questions about that. So first tip, I think I mentioned this before in other videos, is mulch under your tomato plants. I don't mulch under everything in the garden, but I do mulch under the tomato plants. And if you had rain earlier this week, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say splashback. If you don't have mulch under your tomato plants, when the rain, if it's heavy, hits the dirt, it's going to splash back up on your leaves. And what you don't want is wet leaves, and you don't want dirt from the ground splashing up, because that can lead to different fungal diseases and blights. So first tip, mulch under your plants. Second thing is I try to keep at least 8 inches between the ground and the first set of leaves. Now this doesn't mean you have to do this from the very beginning when you plant, but as you can see, these plants are getting pretty developed. They're probably about 2 feet high at this point already. Again, that will prevent that splashback, plus it will also give some airflow circulation under the plants. And airflow is good for tomatoes, because if you don't have the airflow and you have too much branches and leaves next to the ground, you're going to get those fungal issues as well. So as you can see on these, I have already trimmed back the branches that were lower to the ground. Let's see, on this one, I've got one here that's a little bit low. I'll probably end up trimming that one off. The other thing that you want to keep in mind about pruning tomatoes is what are called suckers. So at where there's a branch coming off of the main stem, right in the crack, it's hard to see here, I'll push this aside, but right in that crack, that's where suckers will grow out, which is basically, it's trying to start a new stem. Let me try to find one here that you can see it. Let's see, you can see if I have any. I've been trying to keep them trimmed up, so. Well, here's an example of where I trimmed off a branch earlier, and this is where a branch would be coming out right here, and this is a sucker. So that is something that I would want to prune off, and I will be pruning off. So basically that keeps your plants from getting too bushy and full and prevents that airflow. See if I can find another example where I have some suckers to trim. Let's see here, that one looks good. Here's a good example. So right here, get my camera correctly. So right here, there's a branch. This is your main branch where I'm holding. You have a branch coming out to the right here. This right here, where it's coming out of the corner and growing a new branch, that's called a sucker. And that's what you'd want to either pinch off like that if it's small, or prune off. Now if you've missed it, well, here's another one right here. I'll pinch that one off too. If you've missed it and it's getting big, you probably don't want to cut it off. So here's another example of one right here. It's a little bit bigger. I can still pinch it off with my finger, actually. If it has gotten real big and thick and it looks like a new arm, at this point I would just leave it. You don't want to injure your overall tomato plant by doing that, but that keeps them less bushy. It lets them focus on their main branches and blossom tomato production without all of those extra new branches coming out. So that is about all as far as pruning tomatoes, just keeping that airflow. Someone asked a question about pruning pepper plants, and actually I don't do any pruning of pepper plants unless there's branches that look wilted or diseased in any way. So I have some of my pepper plants where I've got like a leaf such as this that I'll probably trim off. It's towards the bottom, it's been hitting the ground, so it's probably got a little of the fungal issues from hitting the ground. So that would be something I'd trim off. But just in general, there's no need to prune pepper plants. Now, some people I've heard have been trying things like they call topping off their pepper plants to get them to be more bushy. I've never tried that, not sure if it works, but in general you don't need to do any pruning of your pepper plants. So I think that's it for today. I hope that has helped. Thanks. Bye.